Hey, my name is Ulti. I have been playing the Tribes 3 playtest as of recent, and I've been enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. But I wanted to give my feedback, especially my feedback on this playtest in particular, for this weekend, December 15th and 16th. But before I get to that feedback, three important points I want to lay down. First of all, like I said, I'm having fun, and I think the patches are heading in the right direction. There's still clearly a lot of work to go, but I appreciate what's happening so far, and it seems like the devs are iterating pretty quickly, so that's good to see. Second, I am not an experienced Tribes player. At all. The most amount of Tribes experience that I have is, I think maybe I played Ascend at some point. If I did, I don't remember any of it. And I've been playing with Tribes Vengeance as of recently, just to get a feel for the mechanics. Haven't even played any multiplayer games at all. Just a little bit of the campaign. That is it. I've definitely played a lot of movement shooters. I have a lot of Quake experience, a lot of TF2, definitely explored the movement aspects of CSGO and Counter-Strike in general. Tiny bit of Unreal, but yeah, basically no Tribe experience. Know that also means that whenever I'm talking about the game, I'm not necessarily trying to speak on it authoritatively. There's a lot of things that I just have a knowledge gap on. But for the sake of giving feedback that does kind of give me an advantage, I've got a perspective that maybe the devs don't hear from too often. I'm seeing a lot of feedback from people that are very opinionated and very much want the game to be like, oh, I want to be more like Tribes 1, I want to be more like Tribes 2, change this specifically so it's more like this specific game. I don't necessarily have that kind of bias. I'm just trying to figure out what it is that would make this game more fun, make this game better, from the experience that I have. Third, I am going to be critical today because I want the game to succeed. I really like what I see so far, and I think it could be so much more. So please, if you hear me being harsh, know that I'm doing it out of love. First of all, I'm actually going to talk about what I liked about this playtest, all the things that were changed that I think made it better. I think the gravity change turned out well. It still feels a little floaty, I don't know, but it's better. It's better. I do like the more weighty feeling provided by the higher gravity. I also really liked light and medium class actually having a chain gun. It was a little bit easier to actually chase flak bears this playtest. Nugget heal over time was so needed. It kind of sucks that I can't just grab one and then like jump out of there with like all the HP that it instantly provides, but honestly for duels it was kind of necessary, especially if a heavy picked up a nugget. Like that was too much. Time trial. Oh boy. It's very basic right now. There isn't too much in it. It's kind of just some rings over an existing map, and that's really all there is to it. But it's promising. And the fact that they are putting this out now shows that they do want to put some kind of emphasis on having modes like this. Hopefully in the future, something that's a little more organized, smaller maps that are built for specific purposes to teach new players. Here's how you ski. Okay, now you should jet after you go off of the hill. You have to try and make this specific distance or else you haven't done it properly. That kind of thing, you know? I hope that the devs do try something like that soon. I actually really liked BXT being on the heavy class now, just because, like, in order to justify that, they had to give it more damage. And now it's a lot more consistent at killing people off. That feels pretty good. Only problem with it is that Prophecy is now buffed BXT only, which is terrifying. And I got to face that firsthand. I appreciate the grenade launcher nerf, but it still doesn't feel like it's enough. I'm unsure if it was this good in the previous games, but yeah, I don't know, it's still a little too easy to use, and still hits a little too easily. Could maybe use a few more tweaks. The new 12v12 map was alright, just an expanded version of the 5v5 desert map that we already have. I enjoyed it, it's alright. I did appreciate like all the new props that are added. It does make the world feel a little bit more alive. I think one of the big problems with the maps right now is that they all feel kind of a little bit bland, but we'll get to maps later. Alright, now for the specific things from this new playtest that I didn't like. Not necessarily about the game in general, but just the changes from this playtest. I'm really not sure how I feel about the perks now. I kind of liked how beforehand it wasn't like you could take one and you could potentially use that for multiple roles. And now they are intending that, okay, you pick this perk, you're going to do this. Which the benefit to that is that you pick something and then you get a lot out of it. Like you get a lot out of the flag chaser perk, right? Problem is, for example, you want to cap the flag and you don't have the flag capper, I think it is, perk. Flag drag now. And unless you have that perk, good luck capping. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. It took me a while to remember when I was trying to cap without that perk. Like, hey, wait a second. I feel super fucking slow right now. What's going on? Oh yeah, the flag drag. No wonder I'm not building speed as much. Like that doesn't feel good. Like I have to have that perk when I spawn in, and then I have to commit to doing exclusively the thing that the perk says that I have to do, or else I'm just suboptimal. Like that doesn't really feel good. Also, certain perks just kind of feel useless on certain classes. Like, I don't really know why you would go for Flag Capper on Heavy. At first, like, I did try to do that. Just, like, curious, like, okay, maybe I can abuse the higher health and do some boosts and potentially survive more hits than I would if I was a lighter or medium. And then I realized that the speed cap for Heavy is 280. That is so low. That is absurdly low. So why would you even try to flag cap as Heavy? It's just not worth it, right? Like, the whole idea with this perk rework is that you're supposed to be able to do whatever as any class. And you're going to get varying success of that, because of course Light is going to be faster than a Heavy for capping the flag. That makes sense. It's always going to be like that. But why would Light use Banner Breaker, for example, right? Like, what, are you going to try to collide with people that are, like, flying towards you or something like that? Like, you're not going to do that on the flag. You don't really have the HP to survive any hits from just standing on the flag like Heavy does. So, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Queue times. Man, I don't understand what happened with queue times this playtest. It has nothing to do with player base, by the way. I looked at the Steam charts, and player base was about the same as what was going on last playtest. I mean, I don't know, this Saturday there was a bit less than what was happening most of the playtest last weekend, but yesterday specifically, there was the same amount of players as last playtest. And even then, queues were like 2, 5, 10. I had 22 minutes happen to me at some point for a 5v5. Like, what? Something's just broken there. I don't know what happened to the matchmaking. Also, is it me, or were players just kind of laggier? Like, not just other players, like you as well. Like, there's a lot of times where I would just freeze in place, judder in place, and then teleport like half a second later. There was also that weird bug with the flag just teleporting back to the other side of, like, to the flag stand if you dropped it, which I ran into a lot because I was trying to get around the whole, like, oh yeah, flag bearers can't pick up nuggets, so throw it forward, grab the nugget, and then grab it back for yourself or pass it back to somebody. Well, what if it hits the ground? You've got like a 10% chance that it might just clip through the ground, and then guess what? You've lost that flag. So those are the important things that I thought were worth bringing up about this playtest. I kind of wanted to get to just my general thoughts on the game. I have submitted some feedback via the Google form, but I feel like at least in a format like this, I can maybe be a little bit more articulate. I don't really get what the point of the generator is in this current iteration of Tribes. Like, it turns off the turrets? Okay, that doesn't really matter. The turrets aren't that deadly if you're going even just a bit fast. And even if you aren't going fast, the turrets are really inaccurate and they don't do much damage. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I think it turns off radar? Okay, I mean, the enemies will still have their eyes. They can still get height and see where a good amount of the people around them are. They won't see them behind hills, but still, like, you can still use your eyes. It's not that big of a deal. This is where my knowledge of previous Tribes game kind of fails me, because I know, at least from playing a little bit of the Vengeance campaign, there's like a resupply station, and I don't know if the generator ever served for any other purpose in previous Tribes games, but I know that there's a lot of that kind of general base utility missing in this game. So I guess it makes sense that the generator is like so low risk, low impact. But even then, that feels weird. Like, why put the mechanic in at all if it just doesn't do too much? It's just kind of unsatisfying. It even feels unsatisfying to kill, honestly. Feels like it's so low risk, like it feels like it has no impact, both for the attacker and for the defender. Team sizes. Okay. 5v5 feels too small. Way too small. It makes sense for the map sizes, I guess, but should they even be that small to begin with? I don't know. It feels very difficult to get past the low amount of team play that typically happens in a pub match. That might be better once people have more practice when the game is out, but aren't we trying to foster a game where newer players can actually get up to speed and be more competent themselves? It feels harder to do that in an environment where you don't have that cushion that more players provide. And I think it kind of encourages bad habits too, honestly. If you do something stupid in 12s, you just kind of die. If you lose your speed when you shouldn't, take stupid duels. If you try to llama grab, you're probably going to die. The amount of times where I almost killed someone on defense and they capped with no contention, no real chasing whatsoever was really, really frustrating. And that just didn't happen in 12s. There's just too many people for that to happen. Also, it was interesting to realize how much less powerful the heavy was in smaller team sizes. It was nice that I couldn't just do stupid things and take stupid duels and get away with it. I actually got punished for overextending. I do have to say, though, I do at least like that you can have a lot of impact as an individual in smaller team sizes. I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty satisfying to confidently point at the things you did and know for a fact that you're a big part of why the game was won, right? Even if it was lost, you can still point to all the things that you did well and feel accomplished for that. That kind of gets lost in higher team sizes. But on the other side, having that individual responsibility is probably going to scare off new players. Hell, I have a friend that actually was avoiding 5s because of it. And I can't blame them. Tribes is hard. You see the footage here. Even I'm still struggling due to my inexperience in FPS-Z. I also never had that, man, my teammates are doing nothing, I have to carry everything, this sucks, like, kind of feeling in 12s. And new players probably don't want to feel like they're on the other end of that. If you want this to be your main game mode, you've got to figure out how to ease new players into it, because the divide between 10 players total and 24 players total is huge. That's a massive gap. I am kind of curious about 6v6 or 7v7, though. Apparently Ascent was 7v7. That sounds fun. I don't know. I think it's going to be important to find that sweet spot between individual impact and team size cushion. I don't know if there's really like a proper precedent for this game mode. Apparently there's a thing called Light Tribes, and it's supposed to be this distilled pure form of Tribes with like a small team size and only lights. Kind of reminds me of COD 4 Pro Mod and TF2 6s, and those definitely have their faults, right? But that's not what Prophecy is going for here, so I don't really know what the intent here is exactly. I do enjoy the maps in terms of how easy it is to understand them. It's pretty obvious to me, at least. Okay, this is where you should jump off of. This is where you should try and land to gain more speed. They're very much like mechanics first, though. Not very aesthetically pleasing, or I don't know, they feel very video gamey. Maybe inorganic is the right way to put it? If you look at the older games, like even Ascent, they had much more hilly maps. They felt a little bit more random. It felt like this actual environment that, you know, you happen to be having this battle on. I think the snow map at least does this better than the others. It definitely feels a little bit more organic and more pleasing to the eyes, but there's still a pretty clear difference between this game and the previous games. I guess I do have to keep in mind that in Universe, Tribes is a blood sport, and, maybe you can kind of lean into that aesthetic more. I think that can work. Make the maps feel a little more constructed, man-made. But that's not what the devs are going for right now. It doesn't really seem like there's any coherent, strong direction. Yeah, I don't know. Please just make the maps feel a little bit more organic. Maybe without the random decorations along the floor that get in the way more than anything. I guess you kind of need some of that to break up the monotony, sure, but I found myself bumping into those more often than I'd like. Maybe that's just skill issue? I don't know. Maybe the multiplayer maps of previous games were like this. I don't really like how hard it is to get back up to speed as it is. I don't know if that's the maps or the physics or the lack of jets. Like, we really, really need more jets, please. It felt like I either had to recall or I had to waste time getting to height so that I could actually get back up to speed. And that made chasing really, really hard if I wasn't already fast. I don't know how I feel about the XD spin fusers as they are right now. I don't know why there's nothing between 0% and 100% inheritance. Like, the difference between the two is massive. It's jarring. Especially to me, that's been used to rocket launchers and grenade launchers where it just goes where you shoot. It makes sense. Inheritance is a very hard concept for me to wrap my brain around. And it's going to be harder for the newer players that have less experience in faster FPSs. If the idea with the current system is that, oh, the 0% is the default, it's just a normal projectile, just use that to start off with, and then once you get good, use the one with inheritance, because apparently that's better. Apparently that's better for chasing and easier to aim with once you're used to it, which is... that's hard for me to comprehend, but okay. That's going to be a hard pill for them to swallow. That now they have to relearn the entirety of how it is that you shoot at people with a projectile. I don't know how it is you convince newer players to do that. That's going to be very frustrating. I've seen a lot of people mention that there should be some kind of slider for it. There should be a 0, 25, 50%, 75, 100% inheritance slider in the settings. That makes more sense to me. Especially for the experienced players who are coming from specific games where they don't have 100% inheritance. They might have 50% or 75%. And trying to learn 100% for them even might be very difficult. Also, minor gripe, but what's with the medium spin fuser XD having the same view model as the honor fuser? That just doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's going to be confusing for viewers and just doesn't feel correct as a player. Speaking of which, view models, I think they look good. I think they animate well, outside of the times that the reloads bug out, which, whatever. My problem with them is that they take up way too much screen real estate. Especially like the BXT, for example, trying to use that in a closer range fight, and it's taking up that much screen real estate, it just kind of sucks. Honestly, I would just recommend taking Counter-Strike system wholesale. Have a view model FOV, a view model offset X, Y, and Z, reasonable minimums and maximums for all of those, and then regardless of whatever you choose, your view model still looks good in action. Also, just having that customization just kind of makes the player feel better, not only more comfortable, but if you've played Counter-Strike, you know that having a better view model just kind of makes you feel cooler, makes you feel like you're more in control. I love damage numbers, but the way they are right now is way too obstructive. Like, specifically trying to hit people with a chain gun and having all of those damage numbers just get in the way feels so terrible. I don't know, I'd recommend looking at TF2 and how that does damage numbers, especially like damage number batching. That's really good. Blink is really fun to use. I love how creative you can get with it. You can use it for chasing, you can use it for dodging in fights, you can use it for getting more height so you can go faster. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but I really, really don't like that it's essentially the only valid choice. Especially because you can just blink through the flag with it, which, I don't know how you counter that. I tried. Maybe I'm just terrible, but it felt like there was essentially no counter to it. I'm a bit concerned about the priorities of the bouncing right now. It's unclear if they're aiming to have things be better for higher play counts or lower play counts. I would assume they're prioritizing competitive, especially since that was the only mode that was available at the beginning. But it doesn't really make sense when they made heavy so powerful at the beginning. I've seen a lot of bickering about casual versus competitive play in the Discord, and I think it'd be kind of a shame if the devs prioritize one or the other. They're both kind of important, you know? The game's got to work well, whether it's 10 players or 64, and I'm not sure if it does with the state of things right now. Frame rates. This is probably my biggest problem. Especially with that whole, like, apparent announced date of, like, oh, they're aiming for February 2024 to release this game. With this many problems still going on, I don't know, that's a little concerning. Like, I essentially have the recommended specs. And even so, in 5v5, I was getting dips below 180 FPS at lowest settings. The lowest settings are quote-unquote normal. And even with that, at native resolution, 100% rendering scale, I'm getting dips below 180. And definitely in 12v12, I'm like at 90, 110 FPS the entire time. Side note, before anybody tells me that this is happening because I'm running the game through Proton on Linux, absolutely not. I decided to sanity check myself last night just to make sure. Restarted my computer, turned on nothing but Steam and the game. Was still getting 90 to 110 FPS in Linux. Okay. Turn on Windows. Do the exact same thing. Same frame rate. No differences whatsoever. Also, thank you devs for using the version of EAC that actually allows Linux compatibility to work. I really, really appreciate it, and I know I'm not the only one who does. If you're aiming to make this game like esports and you want this huge player base and people are grinding it all the time, you've got to make it accessible. And having this high spec recommendation, and even when like I'm at the recommendation and I can't play 12v12 at the refresh rate of my monitor, that's insane. I don't have an old rig. If you want to have bigger numbers, you're gonna have to optimize the game. That is absolutely necessary. Accessibility is not just about having good tutorials and having good UI and having things that make new players be able to learn easier and pick up on things naturally. It's also just allowing them to play the game. The necessary specs to play this game are just way too high. The devs have to work on this. It is absolutely obligatory. They have to. There is no choice. If any of the devs are hearing me right now, and I really hope so, I've put a lot of effort into putting this together because I care about this game, and I really, really want it to succeed. I don't know what's pushing you towards a February 2024 release date. I don't think this game's ready yet. Like, this playtest is supposedly an alpha. It's a pre-alpha. Like, an alpha is supposed to have all of the core mechanics down. They're supposed to be solid. And at this point, they're still playing with the fundamentals of the balance of classes and figuring out how the physics should work. We're not in an alpha state right now. We're in pre-alpha. And the game's supposed to come out in 2 months. Like, there's no way that cannot work. There's no way. I really hope you guys aren't, like, crunching to get this done. I know when the playtest was starting for this weekend, you guys were saying that you were still working on it. It was like 8 p.m. EST or something like that when that message got posted. I don't know. It's just a bit worrying to see that. I really hope that you guys can afford to just slow down, take your time, and do this right. I don't know if there's anything that's pushing you towards, oh, this is necessary, we have to do it by February 2024. If you have the ability to delay the release of this game to get it right, please do so. There's no way this game is going to be finished in 2 months, 2.5 months. So yeah, that's my feedback. I hope that you found it helpful, whether you're a dev or maybe an experienced player who doesn't really get to hear this much detailed feedback from players of my skill level. I really want to be cautiously optimistic about the game, but seeing that February 2024 potential release date is worrying, and I don't know what to think about that. I hope the next playtest is better. I hope we see more progress. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just hoping for good things. I've been enjoying the game, and I just hope it gets better. I hope you guys have a good night. Thank you very much for hearing me out.